Joining us in the Movieland Spotlight is Steve Wang, a director, writer, and special effects artist, here to talk about the Blu-ray remaster of Guyver Dark Hero. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm a massive fan of your work, buddy.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
So before we get into the bloody details of Guyver, can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in the film industry and who inspired you?
Yeah, when I moved from Taiwan to the United States back in 1975, I was already, drawing a lot of monsters and comic characters and stuff like that. And then I experienced my first Halloween that year where, I went to a toy store with my grandmother and there was just these latex rubber masks everywhere. And I had never seen anything like that. I mean, it blew my little mind. And so I started collecting them. I would do little jobs here and there, mowing lawn and that kind of stuff, and save up money. I went and buy these masks, and for about 4 years, I collected up to about 30 different masks. And then after that, I was like, I don't think this is not enough for me. I need to know how it's made. And so I started digging into magazines like Cinemagic. They had tutorials on how to make latex masks, and you had to learn how to sculpt and make molds, casts, latex, paint, all that kind of stuff. So I learned a lot of that stuff just through these magazines, because back then this was decades and decades before the internet, and even like VHS and all that stuff. So getting information was actually quite difficult. So I ended up just kind of teaching myself how to do it. And then I think 5 years after that, I ended up moving to LA to get into the movie business, to do makeup effects and monsters and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, you primarily started just doing special effects. What was the transition going to writing and directing? Was that always a passion there, or was it just something that just fell into?
Yeah, actually, right before I moved down to LA, I made a movie called Kung Fu Rascals, and it was just like a 30-minute shot on Super 8 with all my friends, kind of an epic disaster. And it was so difficult to do, but also at the end when I had it all edited and put together and we were watching it at our party, it was just so much fun to watch. And at that point, I think I was bit by the bug. I was like, oh, wow. And I didn't think I would find something else that would be just as passionate about, other than sculpting and making masks and stuff like that. So while I was working in LA on the films, on the weekends and certain, wherever free time I had, I would collaborate with my friends and we'd go out and shoot these Super 8 films. So that was kind of happening concurrently. And I think during that time, it was sort of like about 88, I ran into a bunch of people. There's a guy named Phil Vigent who owns a store called Super 8 Sound. And he specializes in professional Super 8 equipment. And at that point, movies like Polish Vampire in Burbank was coming out. And there were full feature films shot on Super 8. And you shoot on film, you telecine it, and you do your post-production, on 3/4 inch video and stuff like that. So that blew my mind that you could actually make a movie in Super 8. And so I got the idea, like, okay, I think I want to make a full feature, make Kung Fu Rascals as a full feature. So before I did that, I shot a little film called Code 9, a 10-minute short film, to basically test out the entire process from shooting on film, developing it, transferring it, and then digitally editing it, and then doing audio post, sync sound, all that stuff. This was all very important because during those days, if you were doing it on film, it was impossible to sync sound on Super 8 film. You have to do it. There's no system in place that you can actually do that. And so having this, new way of doing it, I test out the entire process. I figured out the workflow. Okay, now I can commit and make a full film. So once I was near the end of working on Gremlins 2, I ended up leaving the project. I finished what I had to do. I left that project. And then I just spent the next 10 months shooting Kung Fu Rascals. I would prep during the week. And on weekends, I'd get my friends together and we'd go out with our costumes and our crazy stuff. We'll just shoot the film. And that just evolved into just a bunch of other stuff. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Man of many hats. Seems like you're inspired by something and you get it done. So very, very well done, sir. But
yeah, thank you.
The list of films you work special effects on goes on forever, and it's a very impressive list. As you said, Gremlins to Batman, Bill and Ted, much more. But you also had a hand in redesigning the iconic Predator, isn't that right?
So basically, I was working at Stan Winston Studios in 1986 with my roommate, Matt Rose, and we were tasked with making the Gill Man. And we were just 20 years old at the time. And so we came up with all these ways of how to make a creature suit that was seamless. And I introduced this, kind of aquatic style paint technique for the Gill Man. And Stan just loved this so much that he got Predator when it was shut down from Boss Films, which I also worked on as a sculptor a year before, before it got shut down. And then came to Stan. And then so Stan says, hey, he was so impressed with what I was doing. He offered me to co-design it with him and to also head up the building of the creature. And so I was like, okay, great. I'll do it. And we had 8 weeks to do it. So I will be sketching stuff, his weapons, his body, all the stuff, But I basically designed him from the neck down, all his
All
weapons
right.
and stuff. And then also designed his paint job and painted him and stuff like that. So, and then I also head up the construction along with my roommate, Matt Rose. And yeah, it was crazy. I mean, we were sleeping once every 3 days, working 72-hour days. I mean, it's nuts because there was so much to do and we had
Yeah.
such a small crew. And then, going down to Mexico, I just thought, oh man, we totally made this terrible thing and we didn't have time to do it right, and then we went and shot it. And then the movie came out. I didn't even go to the premiere. It's like, it came out and next thing you know, my phone started ringing off the hook. And I was like, what's going on? I got 15 job offers in 1 month. And then I realized it was because Predator. And apparently it had set a new standard for, this new look for, for creatures and all that. It became iconic, I guess, over the years. So that film actually changed my career, and I got known for that.
Now, I've been practicing this all my life, but I've never done it in front of anyone. So let me try it.
Okay.
Guyver. It's not working.
If it's anything, it didn't work for me either.
Yeah, Guyver Dark Hero specifically is a very special and sentimental, nostalgic movie for me and a lot of people.
Thank
So
you.
I got to start by saying thank you for giving us Guyver Geeks an absolute masterpiece.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was a very, very personal film. I mean, it was, we're releasing the remastered Blu-ray September 8th. And we did so much work. We remastered the picture. The picture looks amazing. It's the best it's ever looked. And I added some additional VFX into it that we couldn't do before originally. So now it kind of it's a little bit more complete for me. And then we did a lot of behind the scenes footage. We did 3 different documentaries on the film. We have 3 commentaries, picture gallery, interview gallery. I mean, there's so much stuff now. Even a special message from the creator of the Guyver, Yoshiki Takaya. So this is going to be a really special release coming out. And in that, I did get a chance to kind of revisit the film and talk about it because I made that film when I was 27, and it was a very low budget. It was like an $850,000 budget, and even by those days, those standards back then, it's still really low budget. And one of the things I talked about was that film had no business being made. I mean, it should have been impossible because of how much was put into it. If you compare that film visually compared to other films of the same kind of budget, you can instantly see a huge difference. And that was primarily because of all the people that really came out and helped me. Like guys like Wyatt Weed, my line producer Ray Sassir and Tamar Nolan. My creature guys, Moto Hara, Asao Goto, they're amazing. All these guys just did so much on the film, and we all wore multiple hats. So
Yeah.
rather than treating it like a production, which we did, and it was non-union, so we broke every rule in the book, and we can work around the clock. The production designer George Pearson, he slept on set. He built a little nook inside behind the cave set, and that's where he lived. So
Wow.
these things would not have been possible now. I mean, you'll be breaking every rule in the book, every union rule, but we treated it more like a small family friend project, where we just did everyone just chipped in, and we just made this movie, and it was amazing, and I'm glad because it was a lot of heart and soul was put into this film by everyone involved, and I'm really happy. When it came out, we didn't know. It went straight to video, so we didn't know if anybody liked it or not. I think over time, information started trickling in, the internet, like, oh, people were speaking positively about the film. And so it's kind of nice to hear now, 32 years later, that it's become kind of a little cult favorite of a lot of people. And it's really impacted so many people in their childhood, and so, yeah, so that makes me really happy to know that we gave something to the fans, and they really embraced it. And that's really awesome.
I was lucky enough to discover it on VHS at the video store, so it hit me really young. Very sentimental film to me. Love it. Still own a external VHS copy of it.
Oh, wow.
That's the Australian release, big box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing. And with this new Blu-ray, it obviously includes the theatrical version and the enhanced version with the updated visual effects that you spoke about. I'm curious, what inspired you to revisit the film, and what can we expect with this enhanced version?
It's about time that it came out finally. I finally got the rights to the film, so I actually own the movie now.
Right.
And so it was a good time. And the first Guyver came out on 4K recently. And so I figured, well, it's time to put it out. And luckily we had a lot of interest. Yeah, exactly. They did a great job of that one. And so we had a lot of interest to put this one out. And so that's kind of how it happened. And I thought, if we're going to do this, because I know the first Guyver was shot in 35 millimeter. So we had a much bigger negative. Guyver 2 had a lot of technical problems because it was shot on Super 16. And so, just film-wise, you're getting half the negative of 35 millimeter. So already you're losing a lot of resolution, clarity, stuff like that. That's why in the original release, everything looked a little bit soft, And so with this, and with the advent of sort of AI upscaling technology now, we did a lot of tests. In fact, the Guyver geek, Donovan Compson, he and I met him, and as I was telling him that I was going to be working on the release or re-release of the film, he actually suggested what I was thinking was, let's try AI upscaling and see if we can improve the resolution of this film. And so he did a bunch of tests, and I was just blown away at how good you can make it. And it's not a perfect technology, especially right now, but it's getting better and better every year. And I imagine 5 years from now, it's going to be even more amazing. You can literally restore old movies and give the films new life. And so that was the approach, was that, I knew that when we get really far away, the little faces might be a little weird here and there. But overall, medium shots, wide shots, we're just able to add a lot of resolution and clarity back into the film. We didn't alter the film. The film is the same movie. We just literally upscaled it to look closer to 35 millimeter. And that was really exciting for me because I think it gave the film a new lease on life. And then for the hardcore fans who don't want to see an enhanced version, we have the original version as well. So they can have both versions at their disposal.
So the original version is like VHS kind of quality, or?
No, it's the DVD, they're both 2K. Because we actually remastered in 4K, but then we also had a 2K version as well, which I had to deliver to certain territories. And as I started comparing it side by side, with the exception of the bit rate being much higher, the picture quality didn't really change because of the upscaling process. So, if you put it side by side, you can't tell the difference between 2K and 4K. And so I thought, you know what, let's save that bandwidth. Let's put a lot more supplemental material into the disc. I think fans will appreciate that. Because otherwise it's just, it's a waste of space. It's hogging for no reason, because I couldn't tell the difference. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it on my monitor left to right. I'm like, this looks exactly identical. So let's use that space better and give the fans more stuff.
I gotcha. I'm a bit of a sucker for 4K, but as you say, it's just a label there, and it looks no different. I'm still happy with the Blu-ray.
Yeah, what's funny is that my film Drive came out on 4K, and the 2K actually looks better because somehow 4K, there was all this grain that wasn't there on the 35 millimeter film. I don't know what caused that kind of but I thought it looked horrible compared to the 2K version on the same disc. So, but again, that's when you're working with a 35 millimeter negative. We didn't have that option. This film was so low budget, and the original elements of just didn't hold up. I had the original film scanned originally, and we didn't use it because the scan was so terrible. So,
Gotcha.
so we ended up using a different process. But again, I'm really happy with the result. It's not perfect, but man, it looks great, overall. So.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. But yeah, as you said, the Blu-ray's packed with a lot of special features. A lot of Guyver geeks already dug up a lot of behind the scenes and making ofs that are on YouTube and such. Is there anything in these special features that the obsessed Guyver geeks wouldn't have found that are unreleased that'll be on this?
Oh yeah, this is the set that they found online will all be on there. Just as kind of we got permission to use that stuff. But all the documentaries, all the commentaries, interview galleries, photo gallery. I scanned like thousands of photos, and we picked out like a few hundred really good ones to put it in there. So it's all new material. Like no one's seen
Right.
any of this stuff. Yeah. So there'll be a little bit of the old stuff in there, but then it's a ton of all new stuff. So I think fans are going to be really blown away because there's stuff they've never seen in a lot of it.
Man, that's what I wanted to hear. Looking forward to it. Now, winding backwards, what first drew you into the Guyver universe?
I was kind of inadvertently pulled into it because I was working with Screaming Mad George, who's my good friend, and he was offered to do the creature effects for a Japanese Guyver movie. And so he told his agent, he says, well, why don't you bring it over to the US and then we'll direct it and do the effects. And so they thought it was a great idea. Toei Studio thought it was a great idea. So then they decided to move the film to the US. But then George didn't feel comfortable doing it all by himself. So he asked me to co-direct it with him. And so that's how I got in. I was literally in the middle of shooting Kung Fu Rascals. I was actually near the end of shooting Kung Fu Rascals. And so he brought me in like, hey, do you want to co-direct? I was like, yeah, it's, a chance to experience 35 millimeter. Sure. So that's how I got into the Guyver universe. And we made the first movie, and it kind of, there was a lot of conflicting approaches, I guess, Guyver was kind of serious. The producers wanted to make it comedy. We just ended up having to make a comedy. And so personally, myself, it's a fun kids movie, but it's not the Guyver for me, And so about a year later, after it came out, George called me up and says, hey, they approached me about doing a sequel. He didn't want to do it because that's not his style of film. But he says, but if you want to do it, I can, you should call them up. So that's why I called them up and say, hey, George didn't want to do it, but can I do it, on my own? And they were like, sure. But then the budget's only, $850, but then I have full autonomy. And so I thought, great deal. I want full autonomy. That's the best way. Because the first Guyver was kind of tough because I had to work for, producers and all that stuff. And, whatever they say goes, even if you don't agree. But at least on Guyver 2, I could make all the decisions, whether they're good or bad decisions or my decisions, and that gave me a lot of freedom on how the film was made because we broke every rule in the book. And that's how we got so much stuff on screen.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you had mixed emotions of the first one. Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the first movie. I do like it, but again, Dark Hero was the first film I actually seen in that order. So it was Dark Hero first. Then I wound back and found, well, in Australia, it was called Matronics at the time. So I thought it was something completely different when I first picked it up. But yeah, to see that Dark Hero was your own vision and your own freedom is great to hear because Dark Hero is king. Like it is the absolute boss.
Thank you.
Yeah, the practical creature effects remain one of the film's biggest appeals. Like the Zoanoids and the Guyver suit are just beautiful. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of bringing them to life?
Yeah, it's basically we start out with finding in the first Guyver, you saw the Guyver was very short and squat, and that was because George wanted to use his Aikido teacher. He was an amazing martial artist, but he just was not built like the Guyver, and so we made a suit for him. He didn't look imposing like the Guyver. So when we did part 2, the first thing I said was we gotta hire a taller guy, martial arts guy, taller, who has the physique so we could actually build a really intimidating looking suit around him with better proportions, bigger, anime shoulders and all that kind of stuff. So we found a action stuntman actor named Anthony Houck from the Bay Area, and he came down. We hired him, and we did his body cast, and we sculpted a suit around him. And then after that, I met Koichi Sakamoto in Alpha Stunts, and so they were about a foot shorter than Anthony. So we at certain times we had three Guyvers and one on set. Each doing different type of stunts, and they're all different heights. And but fortunately, the shorter they were, the bigger the Zonoid looked. And so, we just kind of moved the camera and cheated to try not to make him look too short. But luckily, all the hero shots was Anthony, so he looked the best in those scenes and stuff like that. So after we do the body cast, we'll sculpt the creature suits, Guyver suit. We'll make big fiberglass molds. We'll cast the suit up in foam rubber. A lot of fabrication goes into it afterwards to make it all wearable. Then we paint them, and then we test fit them, and then these guys get in these super hot, cumbersome suits, and they do these amazing martial arts stunts, and they heat up. And it gets so difficult to work in a creature suit, and especially when we shot in the summertime out in the forest. Man, temperature got up to like 100 degrees in some days, and these poor guys, there's probably 120 in the suit. So we're constantly like trying to, keep the suits open between takes and cool them down, give them plenty of water and fan. It was really difficult. But they did a stellar job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the fight scenes in this film alone are unlike anything I'd ever seen before. They're so entertaining and hypnotizing and still impressive to watch this today. Can you talk about the choreography and how you approach making the fights feel so physical?
Yeah, I mean, Koichi Sakamoto and Alpha Stunts, they're the guys that did all the choreography. And what I would do is with them is, we would talk about the scene, and then, then Koichi actually, he's quite a good artist too, and he would draw up all these storyboards, and then we would talk about the choreography and kind of walk through it and stuff like that. And then what I would do, I would just kind of add and go, maybe we don't need this part. I don't think this part, it's too long, or here, let's try using some of his powers here. We do, and work it out that way. And then they will go off and rehearse. And then when they come back, we'll get ready to shoot. They already know the choreography. And so we just go shot by shot. And, and I pick the camera angles. I operate on a lot of it myself, and then I do all the editing myself. So there's very much a collaboration with Koichi on that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, one minor detail I couldn't get enough of was the sound effects to the fights and the Guyver suit. It really brought so much more to those fights.
Yeah, that was the sound effect was done by two guys. It was Mark Satrakian, who is an animatronic genius in our makeup effects business. You've seen a lot of his work in big movies, even if you don't know who he is. The guy's a genius, but he also is a musician, and he also dabbled in sound effects. So during that time, it was perfect. He wanted to do that stuff, so I brought him in. And then Mark Allen, another guy Mark Allen eventually became my VFX supervisor for when I did the series Kamen Rider. And Mark also is multi-talented. He did sound effects. He does visual effects. He's also a director. He was one of my directors on Kamen Rider. And then he went off and started directing his own independent films. So I had these two really talented guys. And one thing I really wanted to do with the Guyver sound effects is, aside from being high impact, because you're dealing with guys in big rubber suits, I wanted the Guyver to feel especially like there's some sort of technological element to it. So you hear when he's jumping around, you hear like jet sounds and all these electric buzzes when he, spins around and stuff like that. The whole Guyver unit sound, that the undulating sound, Mark created that. So we just try to create a whole sort of unique universe of the Guyver world sound. So that was a lot of fun. We put a lot of detail. Like when I did Drive, my film Drive, if you listen to the fight sounds in that film, you won't find those fight sounds in any other movie on the planet. Because Les Claypool, who was the audio supervisor and one of my best friends, he and I went into the sound booth and we recorded all the fight sounds ourselves. We performed it all the whooshes and the swishes and the grabs and the boom and the punches and all that stuff. That was us in the sound booth recording all of it and then cataloging it and then using it to cut into the film. So he had his own very unique high impact kind of sound. And our arms hurt so bad for the next week we couldn't move because we're beating the shit out of each other in the sound booth. But it came out great. The sound effects came out great. So the thing is, I hear a lot of sound, like you watch like Rush Hour, Jackie Chan, or a lot, like The Matrix, and when they're doing the fight sounds, right? A lot of times they're blocking and they're doing this and that. And to me, it never sounds high impact enough. It almost sounds like they're punching like plastic bags, or they're like, it's very, very kind of subdued. And I know they're trying to maybe keep it more grounded and more realistic. But for me, being a big Kung Fu fan since I was a kid, I always love over the top, kind of sound effects. And so I'm very picky about those kind of sounds in my films.
I completely agree. And don't want to go on a side note, but I love Drive so much too. And when I seen that you directed that too, I was like, yes, of course. It is brilliant, bud. Before watching Guyver, I was a big Power Rangers fan, and I was not ready for this upgrade. It was unreal. Like, you guys went all out with the blood and gore specifically. That looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. It was cool because, when I knew this film was going to go straight to video. And so I figured, you know what, even if it does get an NC-17 rating or no rating at all, it didn't matter. I was just really committed to honoring what was in the manga, and in the manga it was very bloody, very violent. And I thought that that's something that was really important for us to do, to the point where I did that tribute, with how Guyver crushed the fingers of Gregor, like the little nods from the comic and stuff like that. I thought it was really, really fun.
David Hayter played Sean, the Guyver, as well, was great. And this was his debut acting role or lead role that I know of, before going on to play like Snake and Metal Gear Solid and such. What was it like working with him?
Oh, David, he was great. He was, I auditioned a lot of people for that role, and David just had the right look. He had the right tone, the attitude for that. He had just the right amount of anger and darkness I was looking for a guy who was struggling to find himself. He's doing all these horrible things that he thinks that what he's supposed to do, but he just doesn't know, and so he's quite lost. And just David was able to bring that quality into the character. And honestly, and you'll see in the documentaries that we made for the coming Blu-ray, it was just a party. All of us, we just had so much fun making this movie. Yeah. And, and I put him through hell. I won't spoil it. He talks about it a lot. I put him through hell, and he possibly endangered him in some stuff, even though it wasn't. I would not be careless like that. But there's one thing he talked about where he was saying he had to run past me in the camera right before he dove off the cliff. But he painted like where he's right on the edge of the cliff and we're not as close as he think. But I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. But all the shots looking over the cliff with the big camera, that's me shooting that, being held on to a strap, hanging over a 400-foot ledge. I was doing that stuff. He wasn't doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But but we had safety people. We had everything. It was fine. But it makes a good story.
Was there anyone that was close to being cast as Sean, like almost got the role?
Not for Guyver 2, because we were non-union. We had very limited people come through. Anybody who was even known would not be able to audition for it. All of our actors were SAG actors. They just kind of worked under the table so that no one knew. And because of that, none of the actors were, was known really. Right. But in the first Guyver, we had a few people come through that became big stars afterwards. One of them was the guy who played Joey from Friends. He came into audition, and my casting director was like, "Oh, you really should meet this new kid. He's really good," And he came in and read, and he just didn't have the energy. And I heard he was kind of sick or something. So I said, I don't know. He just seemed kind of sluggish, didn't have the energy I was looking for. And so we called him back one more time, and he did another reading, and it was kind of the same again. So I was like, I don't know. He didn't have the vibe I was looking for, so I didn't cast him. Of course, he went up and became a big star. And the character he played in Friends was the energy I was looking for. Not comedic, but so I'm just like, maybe something happened. I don't know. We had, do you know Tiny Lister? He's this big, tall black guy he's got kind of his one eye is kind of a little bit off. He was in The Fifth Element. He was the president.
Yeah.
He was in the movie Fridays. Anyway, he's a pretty well-known guy. He was in the Batman, Dark Knight. Yeah. Anyway, he came in to read for one of the gang members, and we didn't cast him because he was actually too scary. And which is so ironic because, I didn't really get to know him when he came to audition. He came in, he read, he did great, but he was really too scary for the film, And then like decades later, I actually went to his house because I was up for to direct this horror film that he was also producing and was going to star in. And so I went to his house and I met with him and to talk more about it. And he's like one of the fucking nicest guys I ever met. Like he's so soft-spoken, and the character that he plays in the movie is nothing like him in real life. And it just makes you appreciate, actors even more. Like they can just turn on these characters and become the thing. And then when you see them in real life, they're so different. And he's an imposing guy, and you meet him and he's this most soft-spoken guy I've ever talked to. So it's really kind of funny. Yeah,
Debo from Friday. Yeah, that would have been insane seeing him in Guyver for sure.
Yeah. So
Jack Armstrong played the first Guyver. Curious why he didn't reprise his role in the second film. Was it just because of
we went non-union? Because even Vivian Wu at one point, because I had a scene with Miski in the film, and Vivian and I were friends, and she says, hey, if you need me to do it, I'll be happy to come back and do it. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of non-SAG though. And she's like, oh, she might get in trouble. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's such a small part, Right. Yeah, but it's primarily the fact that we're non-SAG.
Gotcha. But yeah, no offense to Jack, David is Guyver, so it's so good for us.
Yeah, they're just two very different films. I don't like to talk bad about the first movie. I myself am not a fan of the first movie, primarily because it's not the Guyver to me. And it's nobody's fault in terms of the cast or anything like that. I mean, they all came in, they all did a great job. It's just that the film, the direction of the film was dictated to us as what they wanted to do, because Ninja Turtles was so popular at the time, and they wanted a movie like that. Even though we're like, it's not the same kind of film. Like we shouldn't be doing that. But I've never directed a feature film before. I just made a Super 8 film that hasn't been finished yet. So I didn't really have much of a voice in terms of I can only protest quietly.
It looked like you still squeezed in what you wanted to do, because, it's borderline kids film, but it's still got that gruesome brutality to it.
It's a bit uneven, because Screaming George especially, George, he loves like absurdist, surreal kind of elements, and he's into Salvador Dali and all that kind of stuff. So he loves that kind of uncomfortable scene kind of stuff. And I was told, make it funny. And so it was kind of like, we had a kind of a clash of tones going on in the film, but it's what it is.
Yeah. You also had Luke Skywalker in the film, Mark Hamill as well. That's insane.
That was amazing when they told me, oh, Mark Hamill's available, do you want to meet him? I'm like, do I? So he came in, met with Mark, and I couldn't believe I was going to get to direct Mark Hamill, and Mark Hamill was cool. He's a total professional. He told me a bunch of Star Wars stories, behind the scenes stuff when we're on set. Yeah, he's just, the reason he wanted to do the film was because he gets to turn into a giant cockroach. That's literally the reason. He says he opened up the script, and he randomly pointed to one of the scenes that he's in, and he says Max turns into a giant cockroach, and he's like, oh, I'm doing this.
Obviously, a big question on a lot of Guyver Geek fans' minds are, will we ever see a Guyver 3?
At one point I gave up. I tried really hard for many years, and I gave up on it. And now I'm working on it again. And I feel like I'm really close to making it happen. So stay tuned. Yeah, it's happening right now as I speak, as I'm trying to get it going. I got the blessing of the creator, Yoshiki Takaya. I'm just trying to work out the legalities of it right now, with his team. So, fingers crossed. It's not looking bad. It's actually looking promising. And I have a great idea for Guyver 3. I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I know David was pretty vocal about making his own script. Is that something that's in the mix, or is you doing something completely fresh and new?
No, I've heard David's pitch. I've had a few other people pitch me the idea. What I want to do is completely different. It's not even in the same. Um, I think what I want to do with it, the Guyver fans will love because it's following more, taking a lot more elements from the manga itself, and taking some of the really important characters and working them into the story. So I'm working on the story right now, just kind of mapping out what I want to do with it. I already have a title. I can't tell you, but I already have a cool title for it. And I'm trying to map out what I want to tell in this story, but it's looking really cool. It's going to be a really cool movie.
Yeah. I know you don't want to spoil too much, but I'm curious, are you looking at continuing the story or just rebooting it completely?
I can't reboot it because it's a whole thing. But I can continue the story, but Guyver 2 was its own story. And so, really kind of like the landscape is completely open to whatever the next adventure would be. So it would be a completely new, fresh story. I don't know that, the only thing that I'm not sure about is because now 30 years have gone by. I don't know, I might have to recast again, a new Sean Barker, because, everybody's too old now, if you will. And I don't think I want to do a story like Logan, where,
Yeah.
Wolverine, it's like really old and it's decrepit. It's like, we've all seen that story many times. And I feel like that this new idea I have where I want to take the story, it's really exciting. And I wouldn't want something like that to get in the way of telling a really good story. So I'm just playing with it. That doesn't mean David won't be involved in some way. I would love to have David involved in some capacity as well. Even, being in the film, playing another character, who knows?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. Because I love my Guyver family. I mean, they're awesome people, and I enjoy it. Even Kathy, she was cast in Kamen Rider as a recurring role, and so I've always stayed in touch with her and worked with her. So there's I would just say I wouldn't discount anything at this point. But right now, I feel like the most important thing is to focus on the story. Focus on telling a really good, compelling, exciting story.
Yeah, I've actually been daydreaming about what a Guyver 3 would look like since the 90s. So, like, yeah, I've a billion ideas, like things where I'd like to see like a backstory of Guyver 0, even if that's only like very, very brief up to where his death. But I did like David's pitch of, the older Guyver mentoring a new one. But like you say, you got a good point. It has been done to death. So yeah, there's so many different ways you can do it. But all us Guyver geeks want the most is some more kick-ass fight scenes, and lots of them with close to no CGI. So I'm sure you got that all in the bag.
Yeah, I have to really think about how I would approach that because, when I did the Guyver 2, we had no money. And so it's funny because I knew I didn't have any money, but I did have time because of how I structured the shoot schedule and how little money we were spending, to make it last. So the consolation prize was, well, we do physical fights because we can't afford VFX. Now with the advent of so much VFX available, so much cheaper now, and I feel like I can do a lot more. Again, it depends on how much money I can raise for this next one, because the Guyver universe is a very expensive universe, and how we did Guyver 2, I can't make a movie that way again because I'll probably get arrested. So there's a lot of rules I'll have to follow, unfortunately, and that costs money. But again, that doesn't mean I can't come up with ways of doing things. But for sure, I know action is a huge component that made it so endearing to the fans, and so that for sure 100%. I have an idea for an action scene already that's really fucking cool, and the Guyver fans are not ready for it. But and that's using a lot of VFX as well, but it's a lot of physical action with VFX integrated into it. So again, I'm just trying to raise as much money as I can so I can bring these really fantastic style scenes that are really elevated from Guyver 2 into the new one. So
me, among others, are going to try to manifest as much positive energy to try and get this made for you, because I cannot wait. It's been waiting for years.
Yeah, please do. Please, let's keep it alive. I mean, if I make this, I would really primarily be making it for the fans, because I feel like they were so loyal to this. And it's been amazing to discover that there was such a huge following. It makes me really happy to just want to make another one for them, especially make something really cool. So,
yeah, for sure. Guyver is definitely very underrated and needs to be revisited, and anyone new definitely needs to give it a shot. Dark Hero specifically is got so much action fights to it that, again, like I say, so hypnotizing to watch today, and do recommend it for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So now here at Movieland, we love recommending movies. Can you share with us 6 movies for us to watch? Old, new, sky's the limit.
I guess films that really kind of were very special in my formative years, and also films that I've come to enjoy over time. I think one of the first films I would say is Superman the movie, the one from 1978. That one, I've seen that movie over 100 times. I used to be able to recite every line of dialogue from that film. It's such a perfect movie. I would say if you've not seen it, understand it's a film that was shot in the 70s, but the writing on that, and the energy from that film, and the tone of it was so timeless, I think. I would recommend that. A Better Tomorrow, John Woo's movie. It's a really great film. It's a story about 2 brothers, one's a cop, one's a gangster, and they're just at odds with each other, and the brother just is disgusted by the gangster brother. But then the gangster brother has a partner, and they're closer in their brotherhood than the 2 blood brothers. And there's a lesson for the younger brother to learn in the film, and it was so very well made, John Woo. And then the gun action stuff, and also is amazing. He brought that style to Hollywood years ago, in all his films. Braveheart, another one of my favorite films. That one is mind-blowing. It's such a heartfelt, great story, great telling. Mel Gibson's genius, making that movie, I would say. Leon the Professional, Luc Besson. Love that movie. That was so good. I think another one that really kind of inspired me a lot was Jackie Chan's Project A.
Okay.
That was a great one. I think that was one of the it wasn't his earlier ones that introduced the modern style of martial arts, but it really was just so great, just as a film in general, and the action and all that stuff. His Drunken Master as well. I think Yeo Ping directed that one. That one was the one that changed everything for me when I saw it, and see martial arts comedy films. And then there's so many, like Star Wars. Yeah, the original. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars geek. My wife and I, we, for birthdays, for Christmases, we give each other lightsabers. And that's how we're big geeks for Star Wars, and that's just a start. I mean, there's so many other movies that I just love, but I recommend those at least to start, and then a few hundred more that they can watch that I love.
Great recommendations there. And finally, what message would you like to share with everyone in Australia who has supported Guyver Dark Hero over the years and is excited to add this Blu-ray to their collection?
I would like to say to the fans in Australia, first of all, thank you so much for all the years of support, for being a fan of the film, and just for keeping the Guyver community alive. I mean, that's been really eye-opening for me to discover that even existed. And stay tuned for the release. We did so much in this Blu-ray for you guys, and I hope you like what we did.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, Steve. It's an absolute milestone for me to talk to you. And again, 1,000 thank yous for this movie. It's a big part of my childhood and still with me today. And I will be rewatching it for my 482nd time next month, but this time in high definition. Wish you all the best with the re-release, and patiently waiting for Guyver 3.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be on here.